When I was a teenager, I remember becoming aware of a young man who was living in a park near my house. And I understood that his parents had thrown him out. It wasn't clear why, maybe drugs, maybe something else. But what was clear was that this young man was living on a park bench. And I think back often to those parents, especially now that I'm a parent myself. And I wonder, where do you have to get to with a child that you throw them out? That you throw them out into the street with no other options? In this week's parasha, we read about Avraham Avinu doing that exact thing. It couldn't have been an easy decision. In fact, the Torah records that when Sarah told Abraham to get rid of Yishmael, to throw him out, that he was upset, he was distraught. Indeed, it was only after obtaining a promise from God that Yishmael would ultimately be okay, Abraham accedes to Sarah's request. And I often wonder, what's the right decision? Is there ever a proper time to throw your kid out of the house? You might say, no, of course not. What are you talking about? There's never a right time to throw out your kid. Well, what if they're into drugs? What if they're bringing your whole family with them? What if they're bringing shady characters around? What if they're stealing your money? What then? What if they're bringing the rest of the children into their world? Do you throw them out? Do you put them in rehab? Do you put them in a boarding school? What do you do? I don't have an easy answer to these questions. I don't think anybody does. What I can say for certain, though, is that this situation calls, above and beyond anything else, for compassion, for care, and for love. When we build communities, when we build these strong, cohesive units that are the backbone of society, we need to build them with compassion and understanding. We don't have the answers to these difficult life questions, but we don't need to. That's not what's going to help this family out of their struggle. What's going to help them out of their struggle, what's going to help them in their moment of pain, is a shoulder to lean on. Is somebody who turns to them and says, I am with you no matter what your struggle is. We would do well to remember that in this week's parasha, Avraham Avinu takes a step that almost none of us at first blush would ever take. Thinking about it offhand, when we're not in this situation, none of us would ever say, oh yeah, throw your kid out. It's a very drastic step. But Avraham Avinu, the vaunted Avraham Avinu, the patriarch of our nation, makes such a decision. Nevertheless, he's Avraham Avinu. Nevertheless, we look to him as a role model of what it means to have chesed in your life. Mercy, compassion, care. And yet he makes one of the toughest decisions anybody could ever make. So when we turn to somebody and we want to judge them and we want to tell them, hey, you know what, you made a bad decision. Remember that you don't know if it's a bad decision. You don't know how things are going to play out. You're not in their circumstances. Remember that Avraham Avinu himself made such a decision. And instead of acting with judgment, we can act from a place of love and compassion. Shabbat Shalom.